Hola, ¿qué tal amigos? ¿Cómo están? Bienvenidos a mi canal de Spanish World, en donde aprendemos el español. Welcome to my channel, Spanish World, where we learn Spanish. And that's exactly what I want to do right now, is learn Spanish with you. I'm always learning Spanish. I know a lot of Spanish. My sphere of Spanish is enormous, okay? I look at a language like a sphere, or a circle, a three-dimensional circle, right? And I want to talk about that. But what I really want to talk about first is why you want to learn Spanish. It doesn't help to know how to learn Spanish if you don't even want to. And so a lot of people don't realize that they want to learn Spanish. But here's the thing, you do want to learn Spanish. I know you want to learn it because I've experienced it. It's kind of like when you eat something that's really good and you know that everybody else is going to love it. And they're like, nah, I don't want that. I'm like, dude, you got to try this. So let's take a look at why you want to learn Spanish. Okay. ¿Por qué aprender español? Why learn Spanish? Primero, first, la gente, right? It's so fun talking to people in Spanish. And even Spanish speakers who speak English, it's even more fun talking to them in Spanish because it's like you get to know a whole other side of them. But honestly, some of the most interesting people that I've ever talked to, they don't speak English at all. They only speak Spanish. And so words really can't describe what I really feel about this first bullet point here, but la gente, like you've got to learn Spanish. You don't even know what you're missing out on. It's like I said, it's hard to describe. Spanish is asombroso. It is awesome. Of course, you know music in Spanish. You've probably heard it. Even if you don't speak Spanish, it's still, you know, the beat and everything, it sounds beautiful and you love it. Well, it's even better if you understand what they're saying. And of course, you can look up the lyrics online and get the English translation, but it's not the same because it doesn't rhyme and it doesn't have the original meaning there. Okay. It'll come close. I know how to translate poetry and stuff like that, but you always lose some of the original content or the original feeling of the poetry. And so you have to learn Spanish in order to really see how awesome this is. And third of all, you love it, okay? And it just kind of swells up in your heart. You know, it's like you become part of the Spanish speaking culture when you become bilingual and start learning Spanish. And it becomes something that you love. And it's hard really to describe these things, but I'm going to try. Okay, so here we have some of the stuff from the Spanish speaking culture, okay? Like the beautiful girls in their dresses, the bright colors and stuff. If that isn't enough to make you want to learn Spanish, I don't know what will be. But then you also have people who you might be familiar with, like Selena Quintanilla, the famous singer from like the 90s, who's no longer with us due to her the tragedy that happened with her. But her music is so beautiful, even if you don't speak Spanish. But imagine if you spoke Spanish and you understood what she was saying in those songs. Then you have like Los Angeles Azules. It's sort of the same story with them. Beautiful music. It's better if you understand it. And then, of course, we have Cantinflas. This guy was like a Mexican comedian, an actor, super, super funny. His famous Cantinfladas, some of the stuff he would say, like if you don't speak Spanish, I don't even know how to begin to describe what he would do. There's really no comparison to him in English. There sort of is with this guy, Pedro Infante. He's kind of like the Mexican version of Elvis, but he was, in my opinion, like even more cool than Elvis was. And so he was a singer and an actor, super successful, super cool guy. And then, of course, here's a few of the things that you probably could enjoy without learning Spanish, like Mexican food, right? But here's the thing: if you speak Spanish, then you can meet more people and actually have like authentic Mexican food or authentic Guatemalan food or authentic food from whatever other Spanish speaking country there is. There's like 21 Spanish speaking countries, right? And if you want the authentic stuff, you have to know the authentic people. It always goes back to la gente. Once again, hard to describe if you have never experienced it, but I'm here to promise you that it's worth it. And you should learn Spanish. One of the other reasons why I really love Spanish is because I like international politics. I like to know what's going on in the world, you know? It's one of the reasons why I want to learn Chinese as well. And so I'm learning Chinese, and I do it much the same way I learn Spanish. And I'll talk about the structure of how to learn a language later on. Like I said, it's a sphere. It's like a three-dimensional circle. But we'll talk about that. The Q&A sessions, if you think that Q&A is controlled like right now with, everything's going on in politics, like you should wait until you learn Spanish. It's, in my opinion, very controlled. This is the Mexican president. They call him AMLO, is AMLO, Andrés Manuel López Obrador. But every now and then he says the damnedest things. Like one time he mentioned that Joe Biden was being blackmailed. Like, oh man, he probably wasn't supposed to say that. And you probably wouldn't know that he said it unless he spoke Spanish. And then you have the very controversial Temach, right? And some of the stuff that he says, and people who disagree with him, and some of the controversies that surround that you may or may not even be aware of unless you speak Spanish. And so, once again, there's just so many things. It's a whole nother world out there. It's a universe, right? It's called Spanish. And if you don't speak Spanish, it's hard to get into all of it. So let's talk about how to learn Spanish. How to learn Spanish. Cómo aprender español. So Dr. Camilo Cruz, who's an influential motivational speaker, teaches people how to be successful. He says, in order to become an expert at anything, there are two things that will help you. First, you have to perceive whatever it is as being important. And so if you have a human brain and you perceive the thing as very, very important, then automatically your human brain will take the task upon itself to learn that thing inside and out until you become an expert at it. But there has to be constant repetition. Well, you can apply that to Spanish as well. And I added in a third thing, and it's that you love it, which makes both of these bullet points even easier. Because if you love Spanish, then the perception of Spanish, the perception of importance is even higher. And the constant repetition comes more naturally because you love it. Kind of like a new song that you hear. You're like, man, I really love this song. And so it seems important to you. And then you want to listen to it all the time until you know all the lyrics. And then you learn the background information, why the artist wrote the song that way. Well, that's because you love it. Con un corazón bien grande. Lo amas. And that will help you become an expert at it. And so in order to do that, I recommend finding something that you're interested in. Everybody is already an expert at something, right? Even little kids. Like you might say a little kid is an expert at his favorite cartoon. He knows everything about the cartoon. The little kid knows all the characters' names in the cartoon and stuff. Well, guess what? That cartoon exists in Spanish. And so whatever it is that you do for a living, like if you're an accountant, for example, look up accounting in Spanish, figure out what the vocabulary is. And if you don't know where to start, this is what I would do. I would go to Google Translate, search for it, go to Google, get the translation of whatever it is, and then take that translation and search for it in Spanish on the internet. And then you can follow it, you can make flashcards, etc. That way you're involved in the Spanish-speaking world in a subject that you're already very familiar with. And that helps a lot. All right, now let's look at the structure of a language. Like I said, the structure of a language is always a sphere, a three-dimensional circle, always, with the subject pronouns at the very center. So this is the very first thing you want to learn in a language, the subject pronouns. And what I mean by subject pronouns, I'm talking about I, you, he, she, we, you guys, they, them, or well, they. These are the subjects that do a verb. They do the action. You can't have a sentence, which is what a language is, right? Forming sentences. It's communication. And so whenever you communicate something, you're speaking in sentences. And every sentence has a subject and an action. It has a thing doing the action, and it has an action. In other words, grammatically speaking, it's called a subject and a verb. Otherwise, you don't have a sentence by definition. And show me any sentence, and I will show you what the subject is, and I will show you what the verb is. If you don't have both of those elements, then you don't have a sentence. Like, I'm sorry, you're not speaking a sentence. So, yo means I, tú means you, él means he, ella means she. So remember, in Spanish, the double L is its own letter, and it sounds like a Y. Unless you're like in Argentina, then it sounds like a J, or sometimes like an SH. But either way, let's just not get confused here. It's él, ella. If you're from Argentina, you could say ella or something like that, right? That's not the way I talk, but I had a lot of professors. I know a lot of people that speak that way. Cool. Awesome, right? Hey, I love all the different accents. Usted also means you, but it's formal. So tú and usted both mean you. That's why I have the you right here, kind of between both of them. Nosotros means we. Vosotros means you guys in Spain, okay? So vosotros is only used in Spain. People from Spain use vosotros. I had professors from Spain. And so even here in the United States, you'll run into people that use vosotros. I typically just teach ustedes because that's mainly what you're going to come across around here in the United States and in the world in general. But vosotros is important, and you'll want to learn it. Ustedes is the way most Spanish-speaking countries say you guys. Ustedes. In Mexico, it's ustedes. All right. And then ellos means they. Ellas also means they, but it's feminine. There is no feminine they in English. Notice there's a feminine version of nosotros and vosotros as well. And so what that means is if the group that's doing the action of the verb, like we, if I were a girl and I had like my girlfriends here, I would say nosotras. But I'm not a girl, so I'll never say that. Unless maybe I'm interpreting or something, which I actually have done that. I was interpreting a meeting with just females, and they were saying we, and so in my interpretation, I said nosotras, even though I'm a guy. So I thought that was pretty cool. Not that I want to be a girl or anything, I'm just saying the fact that I got to say it once. But vosotros and vosotras, so that means you guys, right? If I were talking to you guys and you guys were all girls, then I would say vosotras in Spain. Or if we were talking about a group of girls and they're not present, it's the third person, plural. And we would say ellas, they, ellas. It's feminine. So after you learn the subject pronouns, then you start learning verbs and nouns. Remember, verbs are action words. And then the nouns are things or ideas. But thing is also an idea is also a thing, right? And then from there, you also learn expressions like "Cómo te llamas?" What's your name? "Cómo estás?" Those are just common expressions. You might want to learn just memorized sentences here and there, but eventually you're going to want to understand the grammar behind those sentences, and you will naturally. Plus, I can teach you all that, and I have been teaching that. It's all in videos on my channel. So go to my channel, look up the different videos. I talk about reflexive verbs, talk about common expressions and stuff like that, and I'll just keep making more content. But that's how you do it. Any language. First thing you do is learn the subject pronouns, the I, the you, the me, the etc. And then you start learning verbs and nouns, and then you start learning the things that describe verbs and nouns, which are adjectives and adverbs. And you just start learning expressions and fine-tuning the grammar, learn more about the culture. That's really important. Always learn more vocabulary. That's always important. I'm constantly learning more vocabulary in Spanish and in English, by the way. I learn new English words all the time. And you'll be surprised, as you learn a second language, that's another way to get better at your first language. The more Spanish I learned more cognates, which a lot of times translate into English words that I didn't even know existed. So the next step, in Spanish at least, is learning about the verbs. Every language is going to have its nuances, right? Like Spanish and the personal pronouns, the subject pronouns, the feminine and the masculine and all that. That's a nuance particular to Spanish. But another peculiarity about Spanish is the fact that verbs are categorized into three groups. You have AR verbs, ER verbs, and IR verbs. And the reason why they're called AR, ER, IR verbs is because the endings have an AR, an ER, or an IR. So like these ones, ayudar, bailar, cantar, dibujar. Notice they all end in ar. Ar, 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 ar. That's an A and an R. So ayudar means to help, right? And there's the definition into English for all of them. So you can look those up or take a picture of this or write them down. That's what I would do. I would just write them down, make some flashcards. And then ER verbs end in an ER. So aprender, beber, comer, correr, deber, leer, meter, prender, romper, toser, vender. The IR verbs end in ir. Abrir, añadir, asistir, discutir, escribir, ocurrir, recibir, subir, sufrir, vivir. And so they end in ir, in IR. So why is that important? Because in Spanish, you have what is called a conjugation, right? You have them in English too, but so the AR verbs have to be conjugated with these endings depending on the subject or the person or thing doing the verb. So for example, trabajar means to work. In this case, we have an indicated subject and a verb. So it's yo. Do you remember what yo means? Yo means I. I work. It's like saying I and then having to work. I to work. Well, you don't say I to work, you say I work, right? Well, in Spanish, the infinitive form of the verb is trabajar. In English, the infinitive form of the verb is to work. And so it has the infinitive form always has the word to in front of it. And so in order to conjugate it in English, you simply get rid of the word to, okay? And sometimes there's other conjugations. But if it's the yo form, see how it's the upper left-hand corner? Let's put it in colored here. Okay, so it's yo, and so we use the upper left-hand O. Coincidentally, all of them are an O. So if it's an AR verb, an ER verb, or an IR verb, they're all O's. And so it's yo trabajo. If it were yo aprender, it'd be yo aprendo, yo abro, yo leo, yo miro. But these are different examples. So this would be yo trabajo. Nosotros, and then it's aprender. What would it be? It would be aprendemos. And the reason why it's aprendemos is because aprender is an ER verb, right? So that means we're going to be using these endings. And because it's nosotros, we'll go up here to the format with the subject pronouns. Nosotros is the upper left-hand box. And so you have to use the upper left-hand box in the endings, hemos. So you get rid of the ER, you get rid of that ER, and you replace it with hemos. And you get aprendemos, which means we learn. And so to abrir, it'll be abres for the same reason. Ella lee. And you guys can check these, see if I get any of them wrong. I don't even have to look at the format. I just do it automatically in my head because I've done this so much. It's the constant repetition, right? Because I love it so much, I don't mind constantly repeating it. Eventually it's automatic. So usted, it'll be mira, you look. Ustedes, deber, it'll be deben. You guys should, deben. Vosotras discutís, discutís. You guys argue or discuss. Ellas recibir, it'll be ellas reciben. They reciben, they receive. El necesitar, he needs. El necesita, necesita, he needs. Ellos corren, they run. Correr means to run. They to run. So you say ellos, which is they, and then correr is corren because it's they run. Ellos corren. And then you have ocurrir. Notice that the subject is it. It occurs. Well, it is the third person, just like he or she. In English, you'd say it occurs, and you have to put an S at the end. That is a conjugation in English. He occurs, she occurs, it occurs, right? And so the third person singular always has the same conjugation. It'll be ocurre, ocurre. It's an IR verb. So notice how it, let me explain that last one because it might sound a little different from a person, right? So it, for example, I could say this water, it tastes good, right? It tastes good. It occurs to me. And so it is the lower left-hand corner. Ocurrir is an IR verb. And so we use these IR endings, and this is the lower left-hand corner. So we get rid of the IR and we replace it with an E right there, ocurre. Isn't that awesome? All right. So what I want to do is erase those and give you guys this little exercise assignment, but I'll help you with them really fast. So you can watch this. It's Spidey y sus sorprendentes amigos. It's that new Spider-Man cartoon for kids. And there's a girl and she cries because she loses her scooter. She says, mi scooter no aparece. It means my scooter does not appear, or in other words, it's nowhere to be found. Yo necesito tu ayuda. I need your help. Tu ayudar resolver el misterio. So since it's tu, you have to change ayudar to ayudas. So maybe I'll help you with a couple of them and then you guys can do the rest on your own, okay? We say, la niña llorar. So la niña llora. So it'll be la niña llora. The girl cries. And then you have el scooter no aparece. It's el scooter. So you might ask yourself, which one of these subject pronouns replaces the scooter? Is it yo? Is it tú? Or is it it? It has to be it, right? Because it is a scooter. And so it's the lower left hand. What is the verb? Aparecer. It's an ER verb, so it's aparece. You have to use this E right here. El scooter no aparece. It's aparecer. Get rid of the ER and put in E. No aparece. It's nowhere to be found. It doesn't appear. Yo necesito tu ayuda. Look, when I say yo necesito, it just comes automatically. I actually give you the answer on accident because that's how automatic it is. As soon as I see yo and then I see necesitar, my mind automatically jumps to necesito. Yo necesito tu ayuda. Tu ayuda. When you use ayuda like this, it's tu ayuda. Tu is a possessive, and it means your. And so this has to be the noun. Ayuda, tu ayuda is la ayuda. It's a noun in this case, not a verb. I need your help. Now, this one is a subject and a verb because it's tu with an accent mark, so you know it's a subject, and then it's ayudar, which is obviously an AR verb, so it's a verb. And so it's tu ayudas. Tu ayudas. Ayudas. And here's the thing, resolver is also a verb, but you don't have to conjugate it. It's like in English. If you have two verbs, like to want and to run, and let's say the subject is I want. You say, I to want to run. You'd say, I want to run. Notice that you leave the second verb in the infinitive form. It still has to in front of it. And so you can translate it directly in that manner. You can say, tú ayudas resolver. You help to solve. Resolver, right here, I put the vocabulary word. Resolver means to solve. Notice to. And so you say, tú ayudas resolver. You help to solve. El misterio, the mystery of the missing scooter. Seguir in the nosotros form is seguimos. Seguimos. Las huellas del scooter. So las huellas are tracks, the scooter tracks, the tracks of the scooter. Las huellas del scooter. All right. Can you guys do 6 and 7? Nosotros buscar las pistas. Encontrar nosotros el scooter. So buscar means to look for, encontrar means to find. So we say, we look for the pistas. Pistas are clues. We find the scooter. All right, so I'll put this link down there and these questions. I just got these questions from the link. You're not going to find these sentences verbatim in the cartoon because the Spanish in this cartoon is at a higher level than this exercise because I'm only using the present tense and I'm trying not to use complicated verbs like irregular verbs, although technically encontrar and seguir are boot verbs, but in the nosotros form, there's no difference. So anyway, I talk about all those different nuances about verbs in other videos. So guys, hopefully you understand why you want to learn Spanish. And then the how to learn Spanish is basically just follow my channel, watch my videos, and I'll show you how. But if you love it, it'll come naturally. Okay? So, muchas gracias y nos vemos en el próximo video.